All right, now that we've finished watching our introduction video for class today, we're going to talk a little bit deeper about emotions, right, Matt? Emotions are different things that we as humans feel. And we can have all sorts of different kinds of emotions, some ranging from super happy to even depression in some cases. Matt, what are some examples of different emotions that we might feel as humans?
Happiness, sadness, frustration.
Happiness, sadness, frustration. Yeah, and actually you picked some that we're going to be talking about specifically today, so I'm really glad you picked those. All right, so we have all these different emotions, but at a certain point we have to learn how to control these emotions and how to respond correctly to these emotions. So before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit, go over the vocabulary, just a little bit. All right, so they're on the board, but I'll read them off these little cards that I made. Excitement is to stir up emotions or feelings. So what is something that you felt excited about before, Matt?
Going to a theme park.
Going to a theme park, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of like Disney World or Universal. All right, sadness is our next one, and that is when someone is affected by unhappiness, grief, or sorrow. It's usually after something traumatic happens in somebody's life that they feel great sadness. Our next term is frustration, a feeling of disappointment, often with anxiety or anger from unresolved problems. So sometimes I've felt frustrated in the past when maybe my computer stopped working. I was upset at the unresolved problem, so I was frustrated. Our next vocabulary word is fear. This is a distressing emotion aroused by anger, fear, and it usually has concern or anxiety with it. So when you're afraid of something, you're in fear. All right, our second to last word is anger, which is a strong feeling of displeasure. And then happiness is characterized by pleasure, being pleased or glad. When has something made you happy in the past?
Good food.
Good food, that's right. All right, so that makes us happy. You've experienced happiness. All right, so you can go ahead and jot that down in your vocabulary notebook. They're up on the screen. I'll give you a few seconds to fill that in, the rest of the words. All right, you get it all done?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to move on to now. So now we kind of covered the different emotions that we often experience. Sometimes we can respond inappropriately to those emotions. How do you think we could respond inappropriately to the emotion of anger?
By hitting someone.
By hitting someone, right? Okay, so often we get angry by something, and maybe it's because someone did something wrong to us. So it's not necessarily bad to be angry by it, but when we respond in an inappropriate way or in the wrong way to anger, sometimes we can end up getting in trouble, even though originally we weren't the ones to do something wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was, for example, if somebody stole my purse and I ran after them, I got it back and I punched them in the face, I might get in trouble for punching someone if they couldn't prove that they stole my purse or whatever. But instead I could call over, if there was a policeman around, I could call him over and ask him to take care of it. That was a different example, but or if somebody, a better example might be if somebody pushes us on the baseball field, if you're a baseball player or something, and another member of the opposite team pushes you. Instead of pushing them back, you could just get the referee or a coach and have them take care of the situation. That way you wouldn't get in trouble as well. All right, so when we check our emotions, when we make sure that we're acting appropriately to the emotions that we have, this is called self-regulating or correcting yourself. right? So in that moment of anger, if someone was to push me, in that moment of anger, I would take a moment. There's various techniques that you can use, such as walking away for a few seconds or counting to 10 or just breathing deeply for a few times that helps you calm down and take a moment to think about the right way to respond. All right, so let's go over a role play scenario. Let's say that you are at the grocery store. You've got your checkout, you're ready to check out, you're in line, and somebody cuts in front of you. Right? Somebody cuts in front of you. What are some different first of all, what would you be feeling? Which emotion that we went over would you be feeling?
Anger.
Anger, right? Because somebody ignored you or didn't care that you were there and cut right in front of you. So, what are some different responses to our anger that we might have in that moment?
You might want to push the person.
Okay, you might want to push them. What's something else that you could do?
We could just let them go in front of us.
Okay, so maybe just don't even say anything. Is there anything else?
We could let them know that we're there.
Right, you could say like, excuse me, I was here, excuse me, I was here first, or, the line starts after the person behind me or something like that, right? So let's go back to that first reaction that we had, pushing somebody out of the way after they cut you. What would be maybe a pro and a con of that reaction?
I would be able to get the anger out.
So that would be, okay, that would be like a plus. You'd be able to release your anger. But what would be a consequence of pushing somebody out of the way?
I would get in trouble.
You might get in trouble, right? Because the other people might not have seen them cut you. They just saw you do what? Push them out of the way, right? All right, so what about your second one was do nothing? What would be maybe a positive or a negative consequence of that?
We wouldn't get in a fight.
Okay, yeah. You wouldn't get in trouble, they wouldn't get in a fight. That would be positive. But let's see, what would be a negative one of that?
I would be sad.
Yeah, you would have all that anger still, or sadness pent up in you. So see, sometimes you have to find the right reaction to your emotions. That way you can still express yourself, right? All right, so the last one that we talked about was saying something about like, excuse me, or I was, I'm sorry, I was here first. What would be something pro and a con of that choice?
They would know that I was there,
Mm-hmm.
but we wouldn't fight.
You wouldn't fight, right, exactly. So which one do you think you would choose if you were in that situation?
Saying excuse me.
Saying excuse me, right? Because you wouldn't get, what was it? You wouldn't get in a fight?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I think that's a very smart choice. All right, so let's role play that situation a little bit. Why don't we do a scenario of perhaps you're reading or you're reading a book during free time in class, and a fellow classmate is talking to you. Let's because I know that that's sometimes a situation where a lot of students in our class get upset if maybe a student is interrupting them while they're doing something that is fun or related to school. So why don't you pretend that this is the book you're reading, and I'll be the student that is just trying to talk to you, and let's see how you would respond to that situation after going over this lesson. Right? Hey Matt, did you go to the game the other day? I heard it was really cool. I saw that, who was it? One of the baseball players.
Can you wait for me to finish before you talk to me?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll give you a few moments. Sorry. I didn't realize you were reading that book. Okay, Matt. So that was a very good job role playing. Let's talk about that for a second. What do you think your response was appropriate?
Yes.
Yeah, why?
Because I didn't get mad.
Because you didn't get mad, right? Which I know is something in the past, like I said earlier, a lot of our fellow classmates tend to get upset when they're being interrupted, right? Now, what would have been the negative way, the maybe inappropriate way to respond to your classmate?
By yelling at you.
By yelling at you. That's right. By yelling at me. All right, Matt. Well, we're going to go ahead and break off into our class role play groups, and then we'll get back together after that.